Betrayed by the Council. Earth's Armada appears and leaves nothing standing. Part 1. The betrayal. Admiral Una Park stood on the bridge of her ship, the S horizon, and watched the stars pass by through the main window. For 70 years, humanity had been part of the Galactic Council. They had given soldiers, technology, and resources to keep peace across 12 star systems. Una had spent her whole life believing in this alliance. She had fought beside alien species she once called friends. She had buried human soldiers who died protecting Council worlds. Today, everything she believed in would die. The horizon was part of a 47-ship fleet orbiting a Council world called Nethara. They had been sent here to protect the planet from pirates. It was supposed to be a simple mission. But 3 hours ago, Lieutenant Jia Sun had received a strange transmission from a deep space listening post. The young communications officer had called Una to her station with a pale face and shaking hands. "Admiral," Jia had said, "you need to hear this." The transmission was coded, but Jia had broken it. The message was simple and terrible. The Galactic Council had voted to declare humanity a threat to galactic stability. The vote was unanimous. Every species had agreed. Earth was not told. Earth was not given a chance to speak. The Council had simply decided that humans were too dangerous to exist. Una had not believed it at first. She had contacted Ambassador Taiho on Volantis Prime, the Council capital. Taiho was an old friend. They had known each other for 20 years. He would tell her this was a mistake, but Taiho did not answer. Instead, Una received a recorded message. The ambassador's face was bloody. His voice was weak. Behind him, she could hear screaming and gunfire. "Una," Taiho said, "they came for us without warning. They are killing everyone. Every human on Volantis Prime is being executed. They have been planning this for decades. They fear what we might become." He coughed, and blood ran from his mouth. "Make them regret it." The recording ended. Una stood frozen for a long moment. Then her second-in-command, Captain Dohun Kang, put his hand on her shoulder. "Admiral," Dohun said quietly, "Council warships are coming out of hyperspace. 53 of them. They are surrounding us." Una looked at the tactical display. The Council ships formed a perfect circle around her fleet. Their weapons were already powered. This was not a standoff. This was an execution. A transmission came through. Una recognized the speaker, Admiral Vorath of the Kalari species. She had served beside him for 15 years. She had saved his life twice. He had attended her promotion ceremony and called her a hero of the Alliance. "Human vessels," Vorath said, his voice cold and empty of feeling. "You are ordered to power down your weapons and surrender. Your species has been declared an enemy of galactic peace. Comply immediately." Una opened a channel. "Vorath, this is Una Park. What is happening?" "We have served the Council faithfully. We have done nothing wrong." "Your existence is wrong," Vorath replied. "You breed too fast. You learn too quickly. You adapt to everything. In 1,000 years, you would rule this galaxy. We cannot allow that. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Una felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear, something harder. Something that would never go away. "And if we comply peacefully?" she asked. "What happens to our civilians? Our children?" Vorath was silent for a moment. "There will be no human children after today. The decision has been made. Your species ends now." Una closed the channel. She looked at Dohun. The captain's face was made of stone, but his eyes burned with rage. "Orders, Admiral?" Dohun asked. Before Una could answer, 3 of her ships powered down their weapons. Their captains were following protocol. They were trying to surrender peacefully, hoping for mercy. The Council ships opened fire. Yuna watched the ESS Mercy, the ES Dawn, and the ESS Promise explode in balls of flame. 600 humans died in seconds. They had followed the rules. They had trusted in peace. The Council killed them anyway. All ships, Yuna said, her voice steady despite the horror in her heart. Battle stations. We are fighting our way out. The human fleet came alive. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. Engines roared. They were outnumbered and surrounded, but they were not going to die without a fight. The battle was chaos. Council ships fired from every direction. Human vessels twisted and dodged, returning fire with everything they had. The horizon shook as enemy weapons struck her shields. Sparks flew across the bridge. Officers shouted reports over the sound of explosions. ESS Valor is gone. Someone yelled. ESS Guardian is breaking apart. S Thunder is... The voice stopped. There was nothing left to report. Yuna gave orders without stopping. She moved her ships like pieces on a game board, trying to create a path to the jump point. They needed to reach hyperspace. They needed to escape and warn Earth. Dahan stood beside her through it all. He relayed her orders, coordinated damage control, and kept the crew focused. When a console exploded and killed 2 officers, he pulled their bodies aside and took over their station himself. Lieutenant Jia Sun worked frantically at her post. She was jamming enemy communications, sending false signals, and doing everything possible to confuse the Council fleet. Tears ran down her face, but her hands never stopped moving. The fight lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, the human fleet had been cut in half. 28 ships were destroyed. Thousands of humans were dead. But 19 ships had reached the jump point. 19 ships escaped into hyperspace. The horizon was one of them. As the stars stretched into lines and the ship jumped away from that terrible place, Yuna finally allowed herself to breathe. She looked around her bridge. It was filled with smoke and blood. Her people were wounded, exhausted, and broken. But they were alive. Set course for Earth, she said. Maximum speed. Yes, Admiral, Dahun replied. Yuna walked to the main window and stared at the swirling colors of hyperspace. Behind her, she could hear her crew crying. Some prayed. Some cursed. Some sat in silence, too shocked to speak. 70 years of peace. 70 years of trust. 70 years of believing they had found their place in the universe. All of it was a lie. Ambassador. Taihoim's final words echoed in Yuna's mind. Make them regret it. She made a promise to herself, to her dead soldiers, to every human who had been murdered today. The Council thought they could erase humanity. They thought they could kill an entire species and face no consequences. They were wrong. Admiral, Yuna Park would make them regret it. She would make them regret it until the stars themselves burned out. Betrayed by the Council, Earth's Armada appears and leaves nothing standing. Part 2. The Gathering Storm. 3 months had passed since the betrayal. Earth had gone silent. Every communication channel to the outside galaxy was closed. Every ship that tried to enter the Sol system was turned away or destroyed. The Council believed humanity was hiding in fear, waiting for death to come. They could not have been more wrong. Admiral, Yuna Park stood in the war room deep, beneath the surface of the moon. Around her sat the leaders of every nation on Earth, presidents, prime ministers, generals, and admirals. 3 months ago, these people had argued about borders and trade and politics. Now they sat together as one. There were no more nations. There was only Earth. There was only survival. The Council thinks we are broken, Yuna said. They think we are crying in the dark, waiting for them to finish what they started. They have already divided our territory among themselves. They are celebrating our extinction. She paused and looked at each face in the room. They are fools. A door opened and a woman walked in. Director Sujin Beek was the head of Earth's Advanced Research Division. She was small, with gray hair and kind eyes behind thick glasses. She looked like someone's grandmother. But this grandmother had spent 30 years building weapons that could break worlds. "Show them," Una said. Sujin smiled and pressed a button on her tablet. The holographic display in the center of the room changed. Instead of star maps and battle reports, it showed ships. Hundreds of ships. Warships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Project Changmu," Sujin said. "I started this project when I was a young engineer. I always knew this day might come. I hoped it would not, but I prepared anyway." She pointed at the hologram. 247 warships, built in secret shipyards hidden inside asteroids throughout our system. Weapons that can cut through council shields like they are made of paper. Engines that are faster than anything in known space. Armor that can survive planetary bombardment. The room was silent. Then someone laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had been terrified and suddenly found hope. "How?" one of the generals asked. "How did you hide this from the council?" "They never looked," Sujin replied. "They were too busy celebrating how primitive we were. They thought our technology was a joke. They never imagined we were hiding our real capabilities." She adjusted her glasses. "Humanity learned a long time ago to never show our full strength. We smile, we bow, we pretend to be weak. And when our enemies think they have won, we show them who we really are." Una stepped forward. "The 19 ships that escaped with me have been retrofitted with new weapons and shields. Their crews have been resting and training. They are ready to fight again." She looked at Sujin. "Combined with Project Changmu, we have over 260 warships. The Council has never faced a force like this." The War Council voted that day. The decision was unanimous. Earth would not wait for the Council to come. Earth would bring the war to them. In the weeks that followed, the fleet prepared. Soldiers trained day and night. Engineers worked without sleep to finish the last ships. Pilots practiced combat maneuvers until they could fly in their dreams. In a training facility on Mars, Ensign Narration pushed herself harder than anyone else. She was 23 years old. 3 months ago, she had been a junior officer with a bright future. She had a mother, a father, 2 brothers, and a little sister. They had lived on a colony world called Haven's Rest. Haven's Rest was one of the first places the Council attacked after the betrayal. The entire colony was destroyed. Every man, woman, and child was killed. Nari's family was gone. Her home was gone. Everything she loved was gone. She had cried for 3 days. Then she had stopped crying and started training. She requested transfer to a frontline combat ship. Admiral Park had looked into her eyes and seen something there. Not madness, not despair. Something colder. Something that would not stop until the people who murdered her family were dead. "Granted," the Admiral had said. Now, Nari flew combat simulations 16 hours a day. She hit every target. She dodged every attack. She pushed her body and mind beyond their limits. Other pilots watched her with awe and fear. She did not care. She had only one purpose now. Meanwhile, Commander Hyok Cho led his special operations teams into enemy territory. The Guishin, they were called. Ghosts. They slipped through council space like shadows, gathering information, rescuing human prisoners, and planting the seeds of chaos. Hyok was a big man with a scarred face and gentle eyes. He'd been a soldier for 20 years. He had killed more enemies than he could count. But he took no pleasure in death. He simply did what needed to be done. His teams found human survivors hiding on a dozen worlds. Families who had escaped the initial purge. Soldiers who had fought their way to safety. children who had watched their parents die. Hayok brought them home to Earth, one group at a time. He also learned the Council's secrets, their patrol routes, their supply lines, their weaknesses. He sent everything back to Admiral Park. Every piece of information was a weapon they would use when the time came. The Council had no idea what was coming. Their spies reported that Earth was quiet. Their analysts said humanity was broken. Their leaders laughed and drank and celebrated their victory. On the day the fleet was ready, Admiral Una Park stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the ES Vengeance. It was the largest and most powerful ship ever built by human hands. Its weapons could destroy a moon. Its shields could withstand the fire of 100 enemy vessels. It was humanity's answer to genocide. The fleet gathered around her. 266 warships, crewed by men and women who had lost everything. They had lost friends, family, homes, and futures. They had nothing left except each other and their burning need for justice. Una opened a channel to the entire fleet. Her face appeared on every screen. Her voice reached every ear. 3 months ago, the Council tried to kill us. They called us a threat. They said we were too dangerous to live. She paused. They were right. We are dangerous. We are the most dangerous thing this galaxy has ever seen. And now we are coming for them. The crew of every ship roared in response. The sound filled the darkness of space. We remember every name, Una continued. Every face. Every child who will never grow up. Every mother who will never hold her baby again. Every father who died protecting his family. We carry them with us. We fight for them. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the universe. We remember everything. The fleet jumped into hyperspace. 266 warships disappeared from the Sol system and began their journey toward vengeance. The storm was coming, and nothing in the galaxy could stop it. Betrayed by the Council, Earth's Armada appears and leaves nothing standing. Part 3. First Blood. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace, above Karath 7 without warning. One moment, the sky was empty. The next moment, it was filled with death. Karath the 7th was a Council military outpost. It had 30 warships in orbit and a large garrison on the surface. The commanders there had heard about humanity's extinction. They had celebrated with the rest of the galaxy. They believed they were safe. They were wrong. Admiral Una Park watched from the bridge of the ESS Vengeance as her fleet tore through the enemy defenses. The Council ships tried to fight back. Their weapons fired, their shields activated, their pilots screamed orders. None of it mattered. Human weapons cut through Council shields like they were made of glass. Human ships moved faster than the enemy could track. Human pilots flew with a fury that nothing could match. The battle lasted 14 minutes. When it was over, every Council ship was destroyed. 30 vessels reduced to burning wreckage floating in the void. The planetary garrison surrendered when Commander Hayok chose. Guishan teams disabled their orbital defense systems from inside. Una did not feel joy. She did not feel satisfaction. She felt only a cold, hard sense of purpose. This was the beginning. There was still so much more to do. She ordered a broadcast to be sent across all galactic communication channels. Her face appeared on screens throughout Council space. Billions of aliens saw her for the first time. "We came to you in peace," Una said. Her voice was calm, but carried a weight that made listeners shiver. "We offered friendship. We fought beside you, bled for you, died for you. And you answered with genocide." She paused. "Now hear our answer." The broadcast ended. The human fleet moved to its next target. Over the following 2 weeks, the pattern repeated. Human ships would appear without warning. Council defenses would scramble to respond. The battle would end before it truly began. 6 military installations fell. 12 supply depots were destroyed. Thousands of council soldiers died. The galaxy began to panic. Lieutenant Jia Sun monitored enemy communications from her station on the Vengeance. She heard the terror in their voices. She heard commanders begging for reinforcements that never came. She heard politicians screaming at admirals, demanding to know how this was possible. She heard the sound of an empire beginning to crumble. "They are assembling a response fleet," Jia reported to Admiral Park. 300 ships from 12 species. The largest force the Council has ever gathered. Yuna nodded. "Who commands it?" Jia checked her data. Admiral Vorath of the Kalari. Something flickered in Yuna's eyes. Vorath, the one who had surrounded her fleet at Nithora. The one who had ordered the execution of surrendering ships. The one who had told her that human children would be erased from existence. "Good," Yuna said quietly. "I was hoping we would meet again." The human fleet changed course. They moved toward a nebula on the edge of Council space. The nebula was filled with metallic particles that disrupted sensors and communications. Inside it, ships were blind. They could only see what was directly in front of them. It was the perfect place for a trap. Captain Dolung Kang led the Vanguard fleet. 50 ships under his command flew ahead of the main force, making themselves visible to Council scouts. They looked like a raiding party, fast and aggressive but small. Exactly the kind of target Vorath would not be able to resist. "He is taking the bait," Jia reported. "The Council fleet is pursuing Captain Kang." "Lead them into the nebula," Yuna ordered. Dalhun's ships turned and ran. They fled toward the nebula like frightened animals, always staying just far enough ahead to keep Vorath interested. The Council Admiral followed with 300 warships. Certain he was about to avenge the Council's losses, the chase lasted 6 hours. By the time Vorath realized something was wrong, it was too late. His fleet was deep inside the nebula. His sensors were blind. His communications were broken. His ships were scattered and confused, and the human fleet was everywhere. Yuna had positioned her ships throughout the nebula before the Council fleet arrived. They waited in silence, engines cold, weapons ready. When Vorath's fleet stumbled into the trap, 216 human warships opened fire at once. The nebula turned into hell. Council ships exploded in every direction. They could not see where the attacks came from. They could not coordinate their defense. They could not retreat because they did not know which way was out. They fired wildly into the darkness, hitting nothing, while human weapons found them with perfect accuracy. Lieutenant Nari Jiang flew her fighter through the chaos. She was part of a strike wing targeting enemy command ships. The Council vessels were massive, powerful, and utterly helpless in the blinding fog of the nebula. Nar, I thought about her family as she fired. She thought about her mother's laugh, her father's strong hands, her brother's stupid jokes, her little sister's smile on her 5th birthday, just 3 weeks before Haven's Rest was destroyed. Her weapons tore through a Council cruiser's engine section. The ship broke apart in a ball of fire. Nari did not slow down. She moved to the next target. Commander Hyok chose. Guishan teams had infiltrated several Council ships before the battle began. They waited until the fighting started, then struck from within. They disabled shield generators, destroyed weapon systems, and created chaos on ships that were already struggling to survive. Hyok himself fought through the corridors of a Council battleship. His team of 6 moved like shadows, killing anyone who stood in their way. They reached the ship's reactor core and planted charges that would destroy the vessel from inside. "Charges set," Hyok reported calmly. "Extracting now." His team escaped on a small shuttle just as the battleship exploded behind them. The blast wave pushed them forward, but Hyok kept the shuttle steady. He had done this before. He would do it again. The battle lasted 4 hours, When it was over, Admiral Vorath's fleet of 300 ships had been reduced to 17. The rest were debris scattered throughout the nebula. Hundreds of thousands of Council soldiers were dead. The human fleet had lost 11 ships. 11 out of 260-6. Watched the surviving Council ships flee into hyperspace. She did not order pursuit. She wanted them to escape. She wanted them to return to Volantis Prime and tell the Council what had happened. She wanted the Council leaders to understand that their extermination fleet had been destroyed by the species they thought was extinct. Send another broadcast. Yuna ordered. Her face appeared across the galaxy once more. Behind her, the nebula still burned with the wreckage of the Council fleet. "Your greatest fleet is gone," she said. "Your finest admiral has fled in disgrace. We are coming for your heart now. We are coming for Volantis Prime." She leaned forward, and her eyes were fire. "You wanted to see humanity's true face. Now you see it, and you will never forget it." The broadcast ended. The human fleet gathered and jumped to hyperspace. Their destination was the Council capital. Their mission was the end of an empire, and nothing would stop them. Betrayed by the Council, Earth's Armada appears and leaves nothing standing. Part 4. The Reckoning. The news of Admiral Vorath's defeat spread through the galaxy like wildfire. 300 ships destroyed. The greatest fleet in Council history wiped out in a single battle. The species that was supposed to be extinct had returned with impossible power and unstoppable rage. The Council began to fall apart. 5 species withdrew from the Alliance within days of the battle. They sent secret messages to Earth, begging for mercy, claiming they had opposed the extermination from the beginning. They were lying, but they were desperate. Admiral Yuna Park did not respond to their messages. She had more important things to do. The human fleet traveled toward Volantis Prime. They moved slowly, deliberately, letting the Council see them coming. Let them gather their remaining forces. Let them prepare their final defense. It would not matter. On the bridge of the ESS Vengeance, Yuna studied the tactical display. The Council had assembled every ship they had left. 500 warships from 7 species gathered around their capital world. It was an impressive force. It would have been terrifying to face 3 months ago. Now it was just another obstacle to overcome. Director Shujin Beek stood beside Yuna, watching the display with sharp eyes. The old engineer had not slept in days. She had been working on something special for this battle. "Is it ready?" Yuna asked. I nodded. "The disruptor is fully operational. When we activate it, every ship in the system will lose the ability to jump to hyperspace. They will not be able to retreat. They will have to fight or die. They will die either way," Captain Dohan Kang said from his station. "But at least this way, none of them escape." Yuna thought about mercy. She thought about the human ships that had tried to surrender at Nethara, only to be destroyed anyway. She thought about Ambassador Taiho Eames' bloody face and final words. She thought about the colonies that had been burned, the families that had been murdered, the children who would never grow up. Mercy was for those who deserved it. The Council did not. "All ships, prepare for battle," Yuna ordered. "This is what we came for. This is where it ends." The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Volantis system. 255 warships, arranged in perfect formation, faced the Council's last defense. For a moment, both fleets simply watched each other across the darkness of space. Then Yuna gave the order. "Activate the disruptor." Director Sujin pressed a button on her console. A pulse of energy spread outward from the Vengeance, invisible but devastating. It passed through every ship in the system, disrupting the subspace frequencies needed for faster-than-light travel. The Council fleet's escape routes disappeared. They were trapped. The Council commanders sent a transmission. It was Speaker Moralen himself, the leader of the council, the one who had proposed humanity's extermination. His face appeared on Yuna's screen. He looked old and tired and afraid. "Admiral Park," Moralen said, "this has gone far enough. We can negotiate. We can find a peaceful solution. There is no need for more death." Yuna stared at him. She remembered the reports of human civilians being dragged from their homes. She remembered the images of colonies burning. She remembered the list of dead that grew longer every day as they found more evidence of the Council's crimes. "You had 70 years to negotiate," she said. "You chose genocide instead. There will be no peace today, Speaker. There will only be justice." She closed the channel. The battle began. The Council fleet charged forward, desperate and terrified. 500 ships against 255. Numbers that should have guaranteed victory. But numbers meant nothing against human determination. Lieutenant Nari Jiang led her strike wing directly into the heart of the enemy formation. She had been promoted after the Nebula battle. Her skills were undeniable, her courage absolute. But more than that, her commanders saw what drove her. She fought like someone who had already died and had nothing left to lose. "Strike wing, follow me," Nari said over the radio. "Target the command ships. Cut off the head, and the body will fall." Her wing of 12 fighters dove through the chaos of battle. Enemy fire filled the space around them. Nari dodged and weaved, her hands moving faster than thought. Behind her, 2 of her pilots were hit. Their ships exploded. Nari did not slow down. She could not afford to moor. Not yet. She found her target. A massive Council battleship, the flagship of the enemy fleet. Its shields were strong, its weapons powerful, but it had a weakness. Every ship had a weakness. "Focus fire on the shield generator," Nari ordered. 3-second bursts, now. Her remaining fighters attacked as one. Their weapons struck the same point again and again. The battleship's shields flickered, weakened, and finally collapsed. Nari flew through the opening and launched her missiles directly into the ship's bridge. The flagship exploded. The Council lost their central command. Their coordination fell apart. Across the battlefield, Captain Don Kang led his squadron against the enemy's left flank. Commander Hyok Cho's Guishan teams had already infiltrated 3 Council ships and were destroying them from within. Director Sujin Beek monitored the disruptor, making sure no enemy ship could escape, and Admiral Yuna Park commanded it all. She stood at the center of the Vengeance's bridge, giving orders without pause. She saw the entire battle in her mind, understanding where every ship was, knowing what every enemy commander would do before they did it. 20 years of experience, combined with 3 months of burning rage, made her unstoppable. The battle lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of fire and death and destruction. When it was over, the space around Volantis Prime was filled with wreckage. 500 Council ships had been reduced to nothing. The human fleet had lost 37 vessels. The Council's last defense was gone. Yuna ordered the Vengeance to descend through the atmosphere of Volantis Prime. The planet's surface defenses had been destroyed in the battle. There was nothing left to stop her. Her ship landed outside the great building where the Council held their meetings. The building where they had voted to murder humanity. She walked alone through the grand doors. Her footsteps echoed in the empty hallways. The Council guards had fled. The servants had hidden. Only the Council leaders remained, huddled in their chamber, waiting for the human who had destroyed their empire. Yuna pushed open the doors to the Council chamber. 20 aliens sat around a circular table. 20 species that had agreed to humanity's extinction. 20 leaders who had celebrated while human children burned. Speaker Moralen stood up. His hands were shaking. "Admiral Park, please. We can still negotiate. We can find a way forward. Show mercy." Una walked to the center of the room. She looked at each face. She saw fear, guilt, desperation, and hatred. She did not see regret. She did not see understanding. They were not sorry for what they had done. They were only sorry that they had failed. You had 70 years to show mercy, Una said. What happens now is not negotiation. It is judgment. She turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, human soldiers entered. The council leaders were taken into custody. Their trial would come later. Their punishment would be decided by the species they had tried to destroy. Outside, Una looked up at the sky. Human warships filled the heavens, dark shapes against the stars. They had won. They had survived. They had proven that humanity could not be erased. But she did not feel victory. She only felt tired. And a sadness so deep had no bottom. The war was almost over. The reckoning had come. Now came the hardest part of all. What came after? Betrayed by the Council, Earth's Armada appears and leaves nothing standing. Part 5. Nothing left standing. The trials lasted 3 months. Every council leader who had voted for humanity's extermination was brought before a court of human judges. The evidence was overwhelming. Recordings of their meetings, orders they had signed, messages they had sent celebrating the genocide. There was no doubt about their guilt. Speaker Moralen was the last to face judgment. He stood before the court in chains, a broken old creature who had once ruled a galaxy. The courtroom was silent as the chief judge read the verdict. Guilty of crimes against humanity. Guilty of genocide. Guilty of ordering the murder of millions. The sentence is death. Moralen did not beg. He did not cry. He simply stood there, empty and defeated. But before the guards led him away, he asked to speak to Admiral Una Park one final time. She agreed. They met in a small room with bare walls and a single table. Moralen sat on one side, Una on the other. Two enemies who had shaped the fate of the galaxy. I have a question, Moralen said. His voice was weak but curious. Why did you fight so hard? Other species have faced extinction before. They accepted their fate. They died quietly. Why not humanity? Una considered the question. She had asked herself the same thing many times during the war. Because we are human, she finally said. We do not know how to give up. We do not accept fate. We fight against it, even when winning seems impossible. Even when every logical calculation says we should surrender. She leaned forward. You studied us for 70 years. You watched us, analyzed us, judged us. But you never understood us. You saw our weakness and thought we were prey. You never saw our strength. Moralen nodded slowly. We were afraid. Afraid of what you might become. Afraid that you would replace us. And now? Una asked. The old alien looked at her with eyes that had seen the destruction of everything he had built. Now I understand that we created exactly what we feared. If you had been left alone, you might have been content to share the galaxy. But we attacked you. We tried to destroy you. And now, he shook his head. Now you will never share anything with anyone. You will always be watching. You will always be ready. You will never trust again. Una did not deny it. He was right. Humanity had learned a lesson written in blood and fire. Trust was weakness. Peace was an illusion. Only strength was real. Goodbye, Speaker, she said, and left the room. Moralen was executed the next day. The galaxy watched his death and understood that a new order had arrived. The council was dissolved. Its headquarters on Volantis Prime became a memorial to the humans who had died. The species that had participated in the extermination were stripped of their military power. Their fleets were destroyed, their weapons factories dismantled, their soldiers sent home. They would be watched for generations. They would never threaten Earth again. The species that had stood aside during the genocide were given a choice: alliance with Earth or isolation. Most chose alliance. They had seen what happened to those who opposed humanity. They did not want to be next. Commander Hyok Cho spent months hunting war criminals who had escaped justice. Soldiers who had murdered human civilians. Officials who had organized the killing. Scientists who had designed weapons for genocide. He found them one by one, hiding on distant worlds, living under false names, pretending the past was behind them. It was not. Hyok brought them back to face trial. Every single one. He did not rest until the last criminal was found. And when the work was finally done, he retired to a small house on Earth, surrounded by the children he had rescued during the war. He had saved over 300 young lives. They called him grandfather now. Director Sujin Beek turned her attention from weapons to exploration. She designed new ships, faster and stronger than anything before. Not warships this time, but explorers. Vessels that would carry humanity beyond known space, to new stars and new worlds. They had won the war. Now they would win the future. Captain Don Kang was promoted to admiral. He took command of the fleet that would protect Earth's new borders. He trained young officers, taught them the lessons of the war, and prepared them for threats that might come someday. He was strict but fair, demanding but kind. His soldiers respected him deeply, and Lieutenant Nari Jang finally went home. She had fought in every major battle of the war. She had destroyed more enemy ships than anyone could count. She had been wounded 3 times, promoted twice, and decorated with every medal humanity could give. But none of it had healed the wound in her heart. She returned to Earth for the first time since the war began. A shuttle took her from orbit to the surface, landing in a field near the great memorial that had been built for those who died in the genocide. The memorial was a wall of black stone, stretching for miles. Names were carved into it. Millions of names. Nari walked along the wall until she found what she was looking for. 5 names, carved together. Her mother, her father, her 2 brothers, her little sister. She stood there for a long time. The sun moved across the sky. The wind blew through her hair. She did not move. She had spent so long fighting, so long burning with rage, so long telling herself that vengeance would make things right. But standing here, looking at the names of everyone she had loved, she understood something. The war had not brought them back. The victories had not filled the emptiness inside her. The enemies she had killed had not erased her pain. She had won, but she had lost so much more. Nari fell to her knees and wept. Not from grief this time. Not from rage. She wept from relief. The war was over. She could finally stop fighting. She could finally mourn. She could finally begin to heal. Hours later, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She looked up and saw Admiral Yuna Park standing beside her. "I wondered where you went," Yuna said gently. "I should have known you would come here." Nari wiped her eyes. "I needed to see them. I needed to say goodbye." Yuna nodded and sat down beside her on the grass. They looked at the memorial together. 2 soldiers who had carried the weight of humanity's survival on their shoulders. "What happens now?" Nari asked. Yuna smiled sadly. "We live, we rebuild, we remember, and we make sure this never happens again." She put her arm around the young woman. "The galaxy tried to end us. They failed. Now they have to live in a universe where humanity writes its own future." Nari looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, new worlds waited. New possibilities. New chances for humanity to be something more than survivors, more than warriors, more than victims. "Do you think we can do it?" she asked. "Do you think we can find peace again?" Yuna considered the question. She had asked herself the same thing many times. The answer was never easy. I do not know, she admitted. We have been hurt deeply. We have done terrible things in return. Peace will not come easily. She looked at Nari with eyes that held both pain and hope. But we are human. We have survived everything this universe has thrown at us. If anyone can find peace again, we can. Nari nodded slowly. She rose to her feet and looked at the memorial one last time. Her family was gone. Nothing would change that. But she was still here. She could still live. She could still build something worthy of their memory. I want to help with the exploration program, she said. I want to find new worlds. New beginnings. Yuna smiled. I think they could use someone like you. They walked away from the memorial together, toward a future that was uncertain but full of possibility. The war was over. The galaxy had been transformed, and humanity stood at the center of it all, scarred but unbroken, wounded but unbowed. They had been betrayed. They had been hunted. They had lost so much that could never be replaced. But they had survived. They had won. And now the universe itself lay open before them, waiting to see what they would become. Admiral Yuna Park looked up at the stars one final time. Somewhere out there, new adventures waited. New challenges. New chances to prove that humanity was more than its darkest moments. She smiled. They had a lot of future to write, and she could not wait to begin.